We have Jonathan Wade of Chewy's Juice. You want to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, guys, I'm Jonathan Wade from Chewy's Juice.
I stole his thunder, guys. You can't blame him for that. That was my fault.
I have been a vapor since 2010, so I'm at about the 8-year mark.
Awesome.
Vaping since before ego batteries even existed, so I remember the massive hype of egos. I started my juice company about 4 years ago now, and going strong and loving it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hey, what we'll do is we'll break into this first topic, which is vaping a fad? You know, since vaping has evolved to such an extent, many people are beginning to wonder if vaping as a concept is merely a fad, but I certainly don't think so, especially when looking at the evidence of smoking populations dying down across the nation. In 2014, 16.8% of Americans smoked, but now in 2018, that number is down to 15%. And I know that doesn't even really sound like that much. It doesn't sound like a huge drop, but that equates to over 300,000 less smokers in America across the past 4 years. So it's really no surprise that big tobacco was the first to jump on the vaping is a fad train.
Of course.
And then, of course, something crazy happened. They started to come out with their own versions of vape products, and suddenly it was no longer a fad.
Who would have guessed?
Exactly. John, do you think that the reduction in the smoking rates is what moved big tobacco to just move into our space?
I absolutely do. When I first started vaping, my first device was a little cig-alike device, a cheap knockoff of the blue cigs, and they worked terribly. They would work for 5 minutes and then stop, so I had to have like 8 of them, right?
Exactly.
But even then I knew, like, just using it, because up until then there was no alternative to smoking. Like, vaping didn't exist. So when I tried that for the first time, having never encountered it before, I was blown away, and I was like, this is the future.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing the future, maybe a decade before the technology is good enough to be worth it, or 5 years. But I knew back then that it was going to change everything. And I could also tell that big tobacco wasn't taking it seriously, and they were leaving an area open for new players to come into the market. And, thankfully for that. But it definitely is not a fad to me. It is, for me personally, the only thing under the sun that got me to quit smoking entirely. And I've been smoke-free for quite a while now. I say that it's definitely changed my life, and something that's changed my life that much, in my mind, can't possibly be a fad.
Yeah, and I totally agree. For me, when I saw big tobacco, it excites me that not only is vaping not a fad, but the technology surrounding vape continues to evolve. Yeah. New mods, new pods, new accessories. Yeah. None of us know what a device is going to look like in 2025, but the only thing we know is it's going to look cool as hell. That's all we know.
Absolutely.
And more proof that vaping isn't a fad is the fact that Public Health England, or the FDA UK, publicly announced that vaping is 95% healthier than smoking. Yeah. And then the American Cancer Society acknowledged that vaping reduces harm because, as you mentioned, it is one of the only ways you can successfully quit smoking. John, have you seen this info impact the perception of vaping itself?
I have. I think that there was initially a lot of misinformation thrown around from other parties, but I have noticed an evening out of that information being balanced out by the good information, the reliable studies that have been done, and I've definitely noticed an impact in public perception as a result of that.
Yeah, and me too. And for me, it validated every sneaking insecurity that I ever had about the industry, just fading away. It made me believe again, because for a moment there, I was like Debbie Downer with a rain cloud over my head, limping in crutches, depressed over the possibility that vaping could just disappear. Yeah. But the evidence is showing that it's definitely not a fad.
Absolutely.
With this in mind, we know that countless medical journals, research studies, and harm reduction reports show that it's here to stay. And so I hope you agree with me when you say we should be excited and hopeful because we picked a winning industry.
Absolutely, I do agree.